Hi, I'm Ruth Pierce. I consider myself the relationship maximizer because like to help you take all your relationships to the next level. And we have been going through Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's taken us several months and we're in the middle of it. We finished the private victories, which are habit 1, 2, and 3. And now we're starting the public victories, which are habits 4, 5, and 6. Last session, we talked about the emotional bank account and how you make deposits and what constitutes withdrawals. And the emotional bank account is how much trust you have in that relationship to watch out for you, to take care of you, so to speak. But not only that, because we're wanting to move from dependence on other people, that being taken care of, to independence, where we know we can survive and even thrive on our own, but moving then to interdependence. And interdependence is two healthy individuals who know they can thrive on their own, but they also know that they can go further, and it'll be a lot more fun doing it with somebody else that is also in that same spot. So that's our goal, is to work towards that interdependence. And as we do that, we're going into habit 4. And habit 4 is think win-win. And by the way, before we really get into this, I encourage you to get a piece of paper or your journal or whatever you want to use, because we're going to talk about different things such as win-win, win-lose, lose-win. We've got 6 of those we're going to talk about. So it will help you if you can write those down and you can take notes as you go by. If not, just listen and let it soak in. In this section, Stephen Covey talks about telling a story when he was working with the CEO with his managers. And he wanted his managers to be more cooperative with each other, to help each other out. And he was looking for Stephen Covey to give him a quick fix. So in the weekly meetings that they would have with the managers, he would go into why it was important to help each other out and be cooperative, that we can get more done that way. But before the meeting got over, he would pull back a curtain and he had pretend horses, and he would show, and each horse represented a manager, and he would show which of the managers was ahead. And the winner got a trip to Bermuda. And yet he wanted Stephen Covey to give him a quick fix on helping his managers to be more cooperative. You can't do that. You can't change the fruit or the outcome without changing the root. So if he wanted his managers to be more cooperative, he had to take that mindset of comparison and competition out of the equation. And this is where it gets into that interdependent that I was talking about. But whether you are the president of a company or the janitor, the moment you step from independence into interdependence in any capacity, you step into a leadership role. You are in a position of influencing other people once you become interdependent, or the more you become interdependent, because I believe that all of this is on a continuum. You don't just flip a switch and everything changes. You learn as you go, and you celebrate the baby steps. Celebrate even the smallest progress. The habit of effective interpersonal relationship is think win-win. It's got to be a mindset. It's not a technique. It's a mindset that it's important to think win-win. In fact, the more important that relationship is to you, the more important it is to think win-win. So win-win is our first one. And then the second one, and so on and so forth. Now you may want to leave some space so that you can take a few notes. Or win-lose, that's number 2. Number 3 is lose-win, so flip those 2 around. Number 4, lose-lose. Number 5 is win, all by itself, so just write win. And then number 6 is win-win or no deal. Okay, let's jump in with win-win. Win-win is a frame of mind and heart that constantly seeks mutual benefit in all human relationships or interactions. Win-win means that agreements or solutions are mutually beneficial, mutually satisfying. All parties feel good about the decision and feel committed to the action plan. That's important. If I'm grudgingly saying this is a win for me, how excited will I be to put it into action? Win-win sees life as a cooperative, not competitive arena. So it takes the comparison and the competition out of the equation. You can't have that in win-win. And just a sidebar on that, just in the last 2 or 3 years, I've realized that I want to take comparison and competition out of the equation in all of my relationships. Now, we'll get into this some a little bit later, but there are some places where competition is a must. Like football games, you've got to have a winner and you've got to have a loser, and there's a competition there going on. But in my relationships, and when I'm looking at other people, I don't want to compare. It's okay if I say my team is better than your team, if it's all in fun. But I don't want to compare myself to other individuals. And win-win is based on the paradigm that there's plenty for everyone, that one person's success is not achieved at the expense or exclusion of the success of others. It's that abundance mentality. And I do think that Stephen Covey probably was the first one that used that term over 30 years ago. I'm not positive on that, but I believe he was. And the opposite of abundance mentality is scarcity mentality, where you believe that there's only limited resources and you want to get your piece of the pie. So it's changing our mindset to abundance mentality and moving to that win-win, where it's mutually beneficial to everyone. Win-win is a belief in the third alternative. It's not your way. It's not my way. It's a better way, a higher way. Okay, we're moving to the second one. Win-lose. This is where I win and you lose. In leadership style, win-lose is an authoritative approach. I get my way, you don't get yours. Win-lose people are prone to use position, power, credentials, possessions, personality to get their way. And most of us have been scripted, heavily scripted in win-lose from the moment we were born almost. Most parents, even unintentionally, will compare their kids. And so the child picks this up and they think, if I could do this better than so and so, whether it be nicer or pick up my room or whatever it might be, then maybe my parents would love me more than my brother or my sister. That's that whole thing of comparison. And I have to point all fingers back at me when I say this, because I felt that even though I grew up in a great home. So it's very possible that you have felt some of that too. And then another powerful arena where you feel this is your peer group. And it's the most important one, especially for middle school and high school, outside of your immediate family. And that's where you have to conform if you want to be accepted. And you sometimes have to compete with your friends, or you feel like you have to compete with your friends. And so that competition and comparison come out there too. And then you look at the academic world and grades and the awards that are given out in our academic system. It's no wonder our kids feel that they have to compete, they have to compare. And then the field of athletics. Now, we talked about teams, and you do have to have a win and a lose. But the athletes feel like they're always competing for the starting spot and being compared to other people. And no wonder they can't get to that abundance mentality as easily. And I'm going to leave that part with this next little thought. But certainly there's a place for win-lose. Thinking in truly competitive and low trust situations. Remember, a low emotional bank account is low trust. It's going to be really hard to get to a win-win in a low trust situation. But most of life is not a competition. We don't have to live each day competing with our spouse, our children, our coworkers. That's another place, or workplace, that you can really see that. Our neighbors and our friends. Who's winning in your marriage is a ridiculous question. If both people aren't winning, both are losing. And I want to take that a step further in saying that if both people aren't winning, then the relationship is losing. If both people are not winning, the relationship is losing. Most results you want depend on cooperation between you and others. And the whole win-lose mentality is dysfunctional to that cooperation. That's win-lose. Now, let's flip those around. So this is number 3. Lose/win. This is where I lose and I allow you to win. Some people are programmed the other way with lose-win. I lose, you win. Go ahead. Have your way with me. Step on me again. Everybody else does. I'm a loser. I'll always been a loser. Or it could go this way. I'm a peacemaker. I'll do anything to keep the peace. Can you relate to any of those? I also want to ask you this question. Do you tell yourself that you're not good enough or that you don't have enough? This is leading you straight into this lose-win mentality. Because if you don't value yourself, and I point fingers back at me, the former Ruth, if I don't value myself enough to speak up and say, this is a lose for me, then I will end up with a lose-win. And some of us have been programmed with that so much in our lives, I'm pointing fingers back here, that it's really hard to break that mindset. It can be done. Intentionally realize that you have value, that you have significance, and you need a voice to speak up for yourself. And then take the baby steps and be around people that'll build you up so that you can. Lose-win is worse than win-lose because it has no standards, no demands, no expectations, no vision. People who think lose-win are usually quick to please and appease. They seek strength from popularity or acceptance, that whole deal of the peer group. They have little courage to express their own feelings and convictions and are easily intimidated by the ego strength of others. When they're in a negotiation, lose-win is seen as giving in or giving up. In a leadership style, it's permissiveness or indulgence. Lose-win means being a nice guy. That's not a real leader, is it? Even if nice guys finish last. As you'd well expect, win-lose people love lose-win because they can feed on them. They love their weakness and they take advantage of them. But the problem is that lose-win people bury a lot of feelings. And unexpressed feelings never die. They're buried alive and come forth later in uglier ways. And it can be even physical things that come out of that. You'll have physical things, but you'll also have a lot of resentment that has built it up over time. Deep disappointment and disillusionment represented by the lose-win mentality. And when that happens, you think of lose-win as being passive. But you cannot be passive. No one can be passive forever. It will become passive-aggressive. And it will be outright aggressive and just come out as a mess. I've been there, done that. It came out like lava from a volcano. Caused a lot of problems in some relationships. Or it's going to be manipulative under the table. And it's going to look just as bad. It may not come out as aggressive, but it will be. It's just under the table aggressiveness. But if you settle for the lose-win on a consistent basis, on a consistent pattern, you will become passive-aggressive. I guarantee it. Both win-lose and lose-win are weak positions based on personal insecurities. In the short run, win-lose will produce more results because it draws on the often considerable strengths and talents of the people on the top. And many executives are going to swing back and forth between the two, which in its own way is passive aggressive. And it's very disruptive to the people they're leading, isn't it? But this is why that in personal insecurities, let me go back there a minute, because that is why it's so important to build that internal value and security for yourself. Know you're important. Know you have value. I'm going to go so far as to say love yourself in a healthy way, because that will keep you as a safeguard. Or, as I like to say, I learned it this watching a Chiefs game recently, a football game. It's very important to have a strong offensive front line to protect your quarterback, to protect who you are internally. It whenever you allow yourself for lose-win, or if you look at it from the other side, if you allow yourself to win over somebody so they lost, the trust goes way down. And they're not going to trust you in the future, but they're also not going to trust you that you're going to do what you want, what you need them to do. It's going to be a loss for both parties in the end when you settle for either one. Win, lose, or lose, win. So, just a minute. Yes, let's go now to number 4, which is lose, lose. What does that mean? It's when two win-lose people get together where both of them want to win. That is when two determined, stubborn, ego-invested individuals interact, where they both think they've got to win and the other person's got to lose. The result will be a lose-lose. Both will lose. Both will become vindictive and want to get back or get even, blind to the fact that murder is suicide, that revenge is a two-edged sword. In fact, I think that's probably the phrase that describes this best. Revenge is a two-edged sword. Both of you guys are going to lose. He tells a story about a divorce where the husband was ordered by the judge to sell the assets and give his wife half. Well, he had a car that was worth $10K. He sold it for $50 and gave her $25. Did he win or did he lose? They both lost because he was so determined not to give her the assets. Some people become so centered on an enemy, so totally obsessed with the behavior of another person, that they become blind to everything except their desire for that person to lose, even if it means losing themselves. So that is lose-lose. Now let's go to win. Win all by itself. People with the win mentality don't necessarily want someone else to lose. That's irrelevant. What matters is that they get what they want. When there is no sense of contest or competition, win is probably the most common approach in everyday negotiations. A person with the win mentality thinks in terms of securing his own ends and leaving it to others to secure theirs. I had forgot about this one from when I read the book decades ago. So this was a good reminder. And I think it is in some people's mentality, but I do think that the more important that relationship is to you, it's so important to think about how the other person's going to view that and work together to get it to be a win-win for both people. So before we go to the last one, let's talk about which option is best of these five. And this is how the order that Stephen Covey has it, and this is the reason I'm doing it this way. And he says, it depends. If you win a football game, that means the other team loses. That's okay. I don't think we're going to get rid of ball games, but we can get that win-win in our relationships like we talked about. If you work in a regional office that is miles away from another regional office and you don't need any cooperation from them, then you can have a competition. It might stimulate business. But you don't want in your same company or your same branch where you need that cooperation to have that competition. If you value a relationship and the issue that's being discussed is not that important, you may go for lose-win to genuinely affirm the other person. What I want isn't as important to me as the relationship with you. Let's do it your way this time. Now, I don't think you want to do it on a consistent pattern, but I think it's good to do it occasionally. The one that pops in my mind easily on this is eating out. You know, the relationship is more important than going to a restaurant that they consider a win and I consider a loss. We can do that as long as it's not that consistent pattern type thing. You may go for a lose-win if you feel the expense of time or effort to achieve a win of any kind would violate higher values for yourself. Maybe it's just not worth it. I can think about that playing in with a friendship, a casual one. Um, and you might do that. I don't think you'll want a consistent pattern with that. But I also think that if there is a consistent pattern, then you may just want to say goodbye to that friendship. And then there are circumstances in which you want to win, and you wouldn't be highly concerned with the relationship of that win to others. And he gives the example, and that would be just that win all by itself. If your child's life is in danger, for example, you might be somewhat concerned about other people around you, but saving that life would be the most important thing to you. That would be your win. And so it does depend on the situation on which one is best. And that's okay. And the more you work with these, the more you'll realize it. Lose-win is not a viable option in any context. And the long-term impact, which we've already said, of the lose-win, that's the suppressed feelings, the trampled values, the resentment that seethe under the surface of the relationship is really a loss for both parties in the end. Okay, we have one more, which is a win-win or no deal. And this is when you go into a situation, and it's usually early in the relationship where you say, if we don't get to a win-win for both of us, then we're both going to back away and say no deal. There's times when you can't do that. And it's harder when you've already been in a relationship and you want to try to do it now because that can break. It's harder to do it in like a family business or a business of two friends that have built a business around that. But there are times when you will go for win-win or no deal. So we have win-win, which is the mindset we want to go for. We have win-lose, lose-win, lose-lose, win all by itself, where I don't care what anybody else is doing. And then win-win or no deal. And that's the end of our session for today.